What's up, guys? So happy Easter. I wanted to make a quick video. It's going to be super simple. And yeah, I just wanted to give you guys my update. Nothing really changed. That's why I did not make a video last week. So at the moment, obviously, we had the bounce. And right now, I just want to look at short term for the S&P 500, the probabilities. You can see that right now we're below the first standard deviation of the lower range. Pretty self-explanatory. The means is still as 550. So technically, we could push to 550. As I mentioned in all my video, I've been warning you guys for weeks when a risk-off environment. My bear market model also triggered at the end of the month of March. So we are officially in a bear market. Anyone telling you guys that we're not in a bear market is on drugs. You know, when the S&P 500 is down 3% after hour, then it pops 8 to 10% in one day, and then the day after it goes down another 6%. When you see these big swings, that's when we're basically in a risk-off environment. You do not see those type of price action in the S&P 500 when we're in a bull market. So could this be the bottom? Maybe. I'm going to talk about that in this video. Personally, you guys know I'm still bearish. I will let you guys know when I am bullish again. And you can see that we are below the 200 moving average as well, which is right here. So all the signs are pointing towards us at the moment being in a bear market. Some people are calling for the bottom. A lot of people are buying the dip right now. And that's what I want to talk about. And also Bitcoin at the end. Bitcoin actually looks really good. And what I mean by that, it's about to make a move, right? So Bitcoin right now, you just want to be patient on it and you want to wait for when there's a clear direction. And I'm very surprised with the relative strength in the price of Bitcoin and in crypto as a whole, despite the fact that the S&P 500 is down a lot. Still, after the bounce we had, we're still down more than 10%, peak to trough. And before I continue with Bitcoin, I wanted to just show you guys that the means at the moment, which is 550, is about 4.52% higher. In my humble opinion, we could for sure push to those levels, but I still think that at one point we're going to get rejected again. And I would not be surprised if we go back to retest these lows right here in that ballpark. I would absolutely not be surprised. Then afterwards, that's really going to be the important question, right? Are we going to have a double bottom and, bottom, or are we going to go lower? So you guys know that my first target for this bear market, now I'm going to switch to bigger picture, was this key level 512 right here, which we went to. We did break below it for a short period of time, and then we bounced right back above it. That was my first target for the bear market. Was not expecting it to obviously be triggered this early in 2025. And right now, I'm going to tell you guys what I believe is I believe that we will go to that lower level as well right here before we actually have a bottom. So I believe that if this bear market continues, I do believe we will break these lows and we will minimum go to about 454, 455 in that ballpark for the SPY, the ETF of the S&P 500. So those are my key levels right here. I don't choose those levels. They're all calculated with the models. We already hit the first target way quicker than I even thought. So I could be wrong. Not financial advice, obviously. Not the time to panic neither. If, you didn't take profits when we were at these levels right here, I mean, and you're panicking here, probably not a good idea to panic neither. But if you do have a lot of cash, definitely for me, when we go to these lower level of 450, 455 on the S&P 500 right here, that's when I'm going to basically press the bazooka button and I'm going to be buying a lot. All right, so that's the key signal for you to really start accumulating. If we do go to that level, it's also important to notice that peak to trough, that would be about 25% drop in the S&P 500. That is huge. That's a big drop, guys. And then I do believe that, if you buy here and you go heavy with size at these levels, I do believe that in 6 to 9 months, you're going to be a very happy individual. That's my game plan. Hopefully that helps. All right, so before I move on to Bitcoin, as I said, it's going to be a very short video. I just wanted to show you guys the fair value of the S&P 500, which is very important to take in notes when you're buying the effing dip, right? So obviously right now, if you're buying the effing dip, we're in a risk-off environment. So it's not the same than when you're buying the dip, when we're at the bottom of, the bear, which I do not believe we're in, or when, we're in an uptrend. Obviously, you're going against the trend. So when you're doing those types of buying the dip, when, we're in a clear downtrend and we have no idea how long it's going to last, it could last another 2 months. Trump and the Trump administration could come out in a couple of weeks and say that they have deal with all the countries and maybe they're going to end the war in Ukraine and Russia or whatever. And that could be enough energy, and good news to push us almost right back to the highs, right? So we don't know about that. So when you're trying to, blindly buy the bottom, if that makes sense, at least you want to be aware of the fair value of that asset you're basically buying. And for the S&P 500, it's super simple. The means on the monthly time frame is $543. So 540 in that ballpark is the fair value of the S&P 500. As you guys can see right now, we're at about 526. So we are slightly undervalued. So if you buy right now, you would be buying at a 3.3% discount based on the long-term fair value of the S&P 500. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, I told you guys I started buying the dip. And when that happened was when we were below 500. So we were at that time below that first standard deviation right here. So that is not a bad place to start nibbling a little bit. And that's why I made that video that I started buying the effing dip. But I did say that I was with small size and I'm not going all in yet because none of my models are basically telling me that we're back in a risk on environment. And until then, I will be very cautious. And that's basically what you need to focus on when we're in this type of environment. Just don't lose money. Survive 2025. And afterwards, we're going to make a lot of money. There's going to be a lot of good years. That's what I'm trying to say in layman's term. All right. So just survive. Don't try to blow your account up or buy things without understanding the fair value when we're in a bear market. That is just, especially when you understand the amount of money you can make on the other side when we're actually in the bull market, and you don't need to pick the bottom. You can just wait for us to then enter the early bull phase, and then most likely you'll make a lot of money. So hopefully that helps. So before I switch to Bitcoin, just wanted to show you guys that I do believe we will go right here to that second standard deviation right here. And you can see that at these standard deviation ranges, that's where we bottom here during the bear market of the Biden administration, also during the COVID crash right here. So if we go to these levels right here again, those are really going to be the levels where you want to be adding with size for long-term portfolios. Just like if you guys remember, I told you guys to start taking profit at the highs for long-term portfolios, and I told you guys that it was not worth it to be all in based on risk reward in the indexes for your long-term portfolio. We were basically at the top, and based on risk reward, it made more sense to have minimum 20% in cash. Obviously, I'm in favor of way more cash, but in the same time, this is not financial advice and do not manage your money. And I can't really tell you what to do, right? But it was just a general thought process, and that's why I gotta share those. So hopefully you guys can learn and think about yourself afterwards by taking in some good information. So hopefully that helps. These are really like the key levels you really want to pay attention to. So when we're below that first standard deviation and you start buying in this range right here, right? Long term, you know that, we'll go back probably to the highs eventually in the next coming years. And you'll be very happy when you look at your retirement portfolios, and maybe you'll be able to add a nice 10 years of retirement. So that's pretty much it. So hopefully that helps. All right. So Bitcoin, guys, is very interesting. We're holding very well. I'm very surprised by the strength. Obviously, it's still down 30% from the highs. I told you guys I was stopped out because of my risk on, risk off model. I'm not going to go in detail. I want to make this video very quick. And at the moment, Bitcoin could, depending where the market goes, right? I'm still bearish, but in the same time, when my models tell me to long, I'm going to long. And I'm going to show you guys exactly what I'm waiting for. So if I just recap a couple of months ago, in this ballpark, I told you guys that the momentum was negative on the weekly trend following, right? So that's when you want to be very careful. I was hedging myself with a lot of covered calls. So, it wasn't too painful for me, but still, lost a lot of unrealized gains, but that's okay. That's a part of the game. And I'm basically waiting for the exact same thing to happen, guys. I'm waiting for the cloud trend model to turn green, with the volume weighted the normal MACD that's calibrated using 10 and 20 settings to basically flash a buy signal. And when that happens, that's when, I will be taking on some trades using most likely options. All right. So that's when we're really going to have most likely a good leg up for Bitcoin. If it happens, it could also not happen. So I just kind of wanted to share this with you guys. So it's really just about trend following when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto. Those are trend following type of securities. And this is why, if you look at my model, it's been pretty accurate. If you look at the cloud, right, I'm also waiting for the cloud on the monthly to turn green. And when it turns blue, it basically tells you to get out of your position because now the trend has went back to neutral. That's why the color is blue. And right now you can see, at least on the monthly, we're still not red, right? But I do think, if I am correct with all my other models and looking just at the broad stock market, if the S&P 500 is not going to hold, I would be shocked that Bitcoin holds. I'm not here calling for an 80% crash, but I do think that most likely there's going to be a better opportunity to buy back Bitcoin and Solana and other altcoins. I could be completely wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong, because I know a lot of people are still all in, you know, and yeah, a lot of people would get hurt if that happens. So maybe, we get one last push to the upside, but afterwards, I do believe the party is going to be over. I think the party is already over, but at the end of the day, when you're trading, you should never use your personal emotion, and you should always just listen to your system and always ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? For me, what if I'm wrong on risk assets? I'm going to see it in my system for Bitcoin on the monthly and the weekly time frame trend following. That's it. If it happens, I take the trade. If not, I stay in cash and I focus my energy on other things that are going to be more rewarding in a couple of months from now. And in the same time, instead of killing myself focusing on a crypto portfolio, I'm going to go on vacation. So that's pretty much it, guys. Same with Solana. I'm not going to talk too much about it. Nice pop to the upside for Solana. I can put it maybe on my chart. Yeah, it had a nice pop. It's back at 140 almost, which is not bad, but you can see that we're not there yet. So the cloud is blue on the weekly, so that's progress. We were very red right here on the cloud trend model, but I'm gonna have to, obviously have a big green cloud before I maybe take a trade on Solana, but most likely I won't, and I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if it ends up being head and shoulder to just go back down. So that's where, I think we are in the market. I think this is going to be a dead cat bounce for basically everything that's risk on, especially if I am correct on the S&P 500 going lower. We could have another 10 to 15% drop in the S&P 500, but then it's going to be a beautiful buying opportunity. We're selling the secular bull market, in my humble opinion. So I'm not too worried long term, but short term, I do think we could see a lot of pain and a lot of people trying to catch the bottom, and these tariff negotiation dragging longer than people think. Maybe Q3, Q4 of 2025, before everything gets sorted with China and all these other players. Also, we have the election in Canada, right? So hopefully we have a conservative party that wins for the economy, the Canadian economy, to expand to other countries as well. That could also, start hurting the US and their export of energy if Canada starts waking up. So there's a lot of variables that could drag this further. So hopefully that helps. That's pretty much it. So that's my stance. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then if I'm wrong, I could be wrong, right? I will be looking at my own models, and my models will let me know if I am wrong. So hopefully that helps, guys. I will let you guys have a beautiful Easter. I'm not going to post it today. I'm not going to edit this. I will be editing this video probably tomorrow. All right. Take care, guys. Have a beautiful day, and God bless you and stay blessed. And go vote.